It is December 8th, and I know I technically missed the train, but I still think I should do this video because November was a great month in gaming. Hello everyone, my name is Kevin, and welcome to Nerdy Game Talks. This is a channel where I hope to provide you with some nerdier, different perspective on the topic of board gaming. And yeah, I'm a little bit about me. I basically am a very passionate board gamer, and I love watching YouTube content about board games, and I really enjoy the community that YouTube fosters for just board gamers all around. And that's one of the big reasons I got into the hobby, say 2 or 3 years ago. And so the more I watched those other channels, the more I wanted to offer my own voice, offer my own touch on this type of content, because there's a certain amount of content that I like to see, and there are others that I am not as big a fan of. And so this channel will be an opportunity to provide as much of what I like as possible. So let us begin. This is the month of November, and the month of November is one where I think I played the most variety of games, because first thing to know about me, I don't play a lot of heavy games. For me, an ideal game night would be one medium weight, maybe heavyweight game, and then just fillers galore, tons and tons of fillers. I'm very much a quantity versus, like, I prefer quantity a little bit over quality, sort of, in different ways. I mean, I pick my games very carefully, but I do like for each game session to be just crank out the numbers. You know, I want to log it on Board Game Geek and be like, all right, I played all these games, and it's super fun. So yeah, very much a filler type of guy, but my online game group is slowly being trained to play more advanced games, and that's very, very exciting for me. So I hope somebody's not, I'm training them. This is not supposed to be a training program. If one of my online game buddies watches this, that's so funny. Okay, so how we're gonna do this is I'm gonna start with all the games that I've played only once, and then we're gonna move all the way up into the games I've played multiple times. And because Board Game Geek has this nice layout that goes the opposite direction from most to least, I'm essentially going to go backwards, which means reverse alphabetical order. Why not? That sounds like a lot of fun. So let's begin. First game I'm going to talk about is Unmatched. I have Battle of Legends Volume 1 as the game I logged, but technically a friend who has all the minis painted, who we didn't play this face-to-face, so he taught it to me on TTS, even though he's very much passionate about Unmatched. But we had, did we have a character from Volume 1? Was King Arthur from Volume 1? I don't remember. But we did King Arthur versus Bigfoot. And I know Bigfoot is from his own little expansion. So yeah, King Arthur versus Bigfoot. I was King Arthur. I got whooped pretty hard because King Arthur plays kind of odd with the not super strong, and the movements aren't super great either, and Bigfoot just really caught me by surprise. Overall though, as I'm not too well versed in skirmish games, but Unmatched, I can tell you, isn't one that I feel the need to collect. It's one that I would never turn down a game of if someone else has it, especially if, you know, the minis look all pretty. I mean, they look really nice, like, to begin with, so I'd probably play it no matter what. But I don't feel the need to own it, mostly because I enjoy, for instance, Summoner Wars 2nd Edition. That is my favorite skirmish game out of the small handful that I've played so far, because that one, it feels like the card play in Summoner Wars, you really need to work. You really need to know how to maneuver yourself on the board in order to make the cards work for you. In Unmatched, it feels like the cards, they are their own thing, and then the maneuvering is part of the other thing. And I kind of like how you need to, like, sort of scurry to a safe zone just to fill up your hand in Unmatched. That's pretty cool, but overall the card play feels a little detached from a chess-like experience like Summoner Wars. By the way, another thing about me is I really tend to like abstract games. I like drier, mechanically oriented games. That doesn't mean I don't like a thematic game though, but for me, like if Summoner Wars is better than Unmatched for me because Summoner Wars is so chess-like. So that's another glimpse into what kind of games I like. So that's Unmatched. Very nice. Played it once. Had a lot of fun. Next game is Solar Draft. I played Solar Draft once. It was really cool. It was IRL in real life, and yeah, I sometime in the future I'll make a video of Tasty Minstrel Games and sort of doing an overview of a lot of the games that they've published. But Solar Draft is a very, very nice one. Yeah, if you don't know, Tasty Minstrel Games basically is shutting down, which is really sad. Rest in peace. And man, they had a good run. But yeah, Solar Draft is a game where you're essentially building a tableau, a row of planets, and then you can put comets in between planets to like beef up your score. And a lot of the scoring has to do with adjacencies, like this planet has to be next to another planet, which isn't something I usually like in games. But I think Solar Draft is so streamlined, and the decisions themselves are so juicy that I kept this one. So for instance, like city building games where adjacency matters a lot, those don't tend to be as interesting for me. But yeah, Solar Draft seems to be a very perfect melding of very, very simple mechanisms and wonderful, wonderful artwork. Yeah, wonderful game. Okay, check it out. It's probably super cheap for now until TMG games become super obscure. So get on with that while you still can. Okay, next game is a brand new game. It is Savannah Park. Savannah Park is phenomenal. I've played this game already once in another time in December. So I've had 2 plays in total, but in November I played it once. So here it is. But every time I play this game, I just feel this tension. The design itself feels like it's winking at you. It's like everything I wanted Tiny Towns to be, and yeah, basically it's bingo, but you're choosing what everybody does on your turn. So you have a little bit of choice depending on the player count. If you're playing 2 players, then you have half the choices. But you basically have to adapt to other players' choices while being able to control your own turns very well. And that's the main mechanism. If you find that interesting, I'm not going to teach you the whole game right now, obviously. But yeah, please look up a video on it because this is probably one of my favorite games of the year. I mean, it definitely is, but it might be my number 1. I'm not sure. The scoring in this game is so elegant. It feels like a game that came out in the late 90s, especially like a Knizia game, which is interesting because this is a game by Kramer and Kiesling, who usually have a pretty distinct flavor from Reiner Knizia. Like, Kramer and Kiesling games don't really feel like Knizia games. Even something as simple as like That's Life, Wer Fliegst, it still feels distinctly Kramer Kiesling. But this game, with all its scoring, its simple multiplication, feels very Knizia, especially some of his modern games where you have a few extra modules you can try. They spice up the game very nicely. But yeah, Savannah Park, very simple game. You can teach it to anybody, but a lot of the choices are really, really gripping. Yeah, so the next game is Saboteur. I was able to get a 7-player game of Saboteur down. And another thing about me, like, I'm giving you my whole resume of board gaming likes and dislikes here. I don't tend to like social deduction unless there's an actual other game going on in the middle. So with Saboteur, we're essentially all playing this route building type of game, a little bit like Carcassonne, where a few of us are cooperating and a few of us are saboteurs trying to sabotage the people who are cooperating. And what I like about Saboteur is the cards themselves aren't really friendly to the good guys. So that gives the bad guys a little bit of an edge, but then once the good guys know who the bad guys are, they can easily shut down their turns because there are these take that cards that make them literally unable to play any cards, which should not work. But in this game, it's so fun, it's so nice, and some of the rules are a little vague in what you are or aren't allowed to say. And I really enjoyed seeing the meta evolve over the 3 rounds of Saboteur. So yeah, a lot of good fun. Definitely will be keeping that one for the 7 to 8 player account range. The next game I played is Push. Push is a wonderful push your luck game that I like to teach anybody. This is one of my favorite featherweight games, and I'm planning a whole featherweight series that I want to cover. But Push is essentially you're pushing the luck of both you and two other people on the table because you're making these three columns with cards, and you're playing a game of reverse Uno with yourself. Essentially, you cannot have cards that match the same number and the same color. And so once you're done, once you think you've done enough, you get to keep a column, and then the other players also get to keep a column. And then there's a lot of like really swingy scoring in this game that just fits the vibe of Push very well. This is very much a game that kills Coloretto, even though there are some mechanisms that are different, but that key thing of pushing your luck, I think works better in this game than in Coloretto. But I know different people prefer different games because Coloretto very much feels balanced. This game feels a little crazy and unbalanced, but I really like Push. Okay, the next game I played was Parade. I got to play a two-player game of Parade, and that is a wonderful, wonderful way of playing this game. So with Parade, you have a good player account would be 4 people, but then in that game, you kind of just see this tableau build up, and you're trying to get as few points as possible, but every card gives you positive points, but there's a little bit of influence you can make on the central row, and it's a bunch of crazy mechanisms that takes you like 3 or 4 turns to get used to, but then when you're into it, you kind of like, you feel very smart playing it, because you're like, oh, I understand this is my safe zone, and then I can do all this, I can take these cards, boom, boom, boom. It's really, really nice. Really tactical, but I feel like there's a lot of room for strategy in it too. It's still a game I wanted to learn better, but the cool thing about the 2-player mode is there's more room for maneuvering, because one of the ways the game ends is if you get at least 1 card of every single suit. I think there are 6 suits. That takes effort. So if somebody has fewer cards, then the other player kind of wants to wait for them to have to take more cards, and then they can pounce, because again, you're trying to get the fewest number of points possible. So the 2-player game of Parade is such a nice ebb and flow, and the game is always a little longer than I expect, but as it continues, it gets more and more exciting, so I really like it. Speaking of 2-player experiences, the next game I played was Paperback. Paperback, speaking of long games that feel long, I've only played the simple version of Paperback, and I feel like I need to check out the more advanced version soon, because every time I play Paperback, there comes a point halfway where I'm like, this game is too long. And I don't know why, because I'm spelling all these amazing words, these really fun words. I'm doing some deck building, which I absolutely enjoy, but something about it feels a little dry, a little gear grinding by the halfway point. I'm not sure why, but I know there's like a few other rules that I can easily plug in that could probably change the game immediately for me. So yeah, that's Paperback. Still had a good time though. It was nice to pull this game out once in a while. The next game I played is Okey, or rather, in my copy, it's called MEOW, which is probably the modern version you can find. This is a Bruno Cathala game. I really enjoy these Euro designers like Uwe Rosenberg and Bruno Cathala, who just release abstract games once in a while. With Uwe and Bruno, they perennially release these games. It's really, really fun to see, oh wow, the next big Euro Hallertau came out. Oh, but there's also a game like Fairy Trails or Sagani. Yeah, same with Bruno Cathala. I can't remember what his last big game was, but Nia is a very tiny little Connect 4 variant that has a few little, you're essentially, you can control what tiles your opponent has to choose from. There's like a matching aspect, a pattern matching aspect, and it's one of those games where you may reach a draw, but it's not as likely as, say, tic-tac-toe. Not that, tic-tac-toe is some golden standard of abstract gaming, but I really enjoy playing Nia. I like the multi-round variant where You play a couple of rounds till somebody reaches a certain number of tiles, and then that person's the winner. That gives the game a nice flow. The next game I played was Monster Match. That's right, more very feathery fillers that I enjoy. Monster Match is a speed matching game where you have to slap cards on the table, but I tend to not really like it. Even a speed game like Ghost Blitz, which I probably would never turn down a game of, but I never feel the need to own just because it's a little rudimentary. Monster Match has just a few design choices by Ken Gruhl, who is a great designer, that tickle my fancy just a little bit more. First of all, there can be more than one answer at a time, so two people can slap different spots, and they both get to keep the cards. That's so cool. I like that there are these dice that are used to determine what monsters are going to be the ones that you need to slap. And then there's a mechanism where all of a sudden you could have 10 more monsters on the board. And so if you had like 15, suddenly you have 25 monsters to look at. And I really enjoy how overwhelming it gets and how fun it is. Yeah, and because there could be more than one answer, I really enjoy the moment where there's one more for somebody to slap, one more answer, and then I'm just like doing my poker face like, nothing's wrong. And then there's always someone at the table like, slap that one, it's the correct. It's like they start helping each other out in this game, which is always something I really enjoy. And it comes in a really cute little pouch. That's Monster Match. The next game I played was MEOW. MEOW is one of the simplest trick takers that I have played. It is by the good Dr. Rainer Knizia, my favorite designer. And this is a trick-taking game I will only ever play with 3 players. And I'm so sure of that I threw away all the cards that were meant for 4 to 6 players. And you can always kind of grok how many players a trick-taking game is supposed to be for, like based on the number of suits, based on how far the numbers go, and all that cool stuff. Like if a game has like 5 suits, then it's probably at least for 4 players. You probably shouldn't play with fewer. If it has 3 suits, like in MEOW, you should probably play with 3, maybe try it with 4. And I have no doubt that MEOW is a good game for like 4, maybe even more players. But with 3 players, it just sings so well. There are these tokens where if you get 1, you're fine. But if you get a pair of them, you lose 20 points. And the whole point of MEOW is with every trick, you get a token, either good or bad. And so, speaking of That's Life, I mentioned earlier, MEOW kind of reminds me of That's Life in the way you're getting these tokens. But yeah, it's with 3 players, because there are 4 of those super negative tokens, that means someone is going to be getting a pair of them. And someone's going to be losing 20 points. And that tension is what makes MEOW a game that I would actually keep, rather than just another trick-taking throwaway trifle. So the next game I played is another feathery game. One of the simplest games in my collection, but I still keep it because a lot of the people I play with are, they really don't know any games. And as much as I can just throw them off the deep end, and you never know what somebody's deep end is. I've played Point Salad with people who think it's like the most brain-burning experience of their lives. But this one is so light because you can't control much of it. This is a game called King Frog. It is from Brain Games. It is not well known at all, but I really like it because if there's one mechanism I can safely call in my top 2 mechanisms, let's say, it would be simultaneous action selection. I cannot get enough of simultaneous action selection games. And this is the simplest one because you have 5 cards. Every time you have these frogs on a lily pad, you want to hop over other frogs because no 2 frogs can keep on the same lily pad, but you're trying to get to the lily pads of your own color. But because there's a certain programmable order in which certain frogs go first, you're never sure how many steps you need to take because you have to jump over other frogs. And that tension is so fun, and people who don't know much about game design, they're going to think there's a lot of strategy in it. But in reality, it's there's not. You just play a card and see what happens. It's one of those games. But there can be some surprising moments in it. And so of all the countless featherweight simultaneous action selection games, this one somehow hits a nice sweet spot for me. Okay, the next game I played was Kariba. Kariba is fantastic. In fact, I have a video on it that I'm probably going to be uploading soonish. This is another one of my simplest games. This is a game that reminds me of other Knizia games. By the way, this is designed by Knizia. This is an even simpler version of Lost Cities or Schottentotten. You have animals around a watering hole. You've got to collect them, capture cards essentially, chase other animals away. It's really breezy, but you have a small hand size of 5 cards, and you're always cursing yourself because you want more cards. And you need to learn how to hand manage. There's a very simple lesson in hand management there, as we're playing this very, very, very nice, simple game. Good for 2 or 3 players. That's Kariba. The next game I played was Istanbul. This is the first game that safely goes over the filler category. This is definitely a slightly more streamlined game. I mean, not streamlined, sorry. Whoa, all my words are getting confused. A slightly more complex game, even though it is really streamlined, because I was looking at Yokohama earlier as just for research. But like compared to Yokohama, Istanbul is such a streamlined game. That's why I had that word in my head. But yeah, Istanbul is quickly becoming one of my favorite games, especially at that 4-player count where the interaction is super juicy, but the turns are still really fast. And man, Rudiger Dorn is such a great designer. I used to own his game Steam Time. I actually kind of regret selling it. I might get it back. Steam Time is another great one that's a little bit more underrated. You can probably get that one for cheap, but Istanbul is just super, super great. And the dice game version is also on my wish list at some point, because I just really like the idea of getting gems and then that's the whole game. That's so cool, and having a game just blossom out of it. I just really, really love it. Istanbul. The next game I played was Free Ride. I specifically played the solo mode of Free Ride, and I'm going to address one of the issues that a lot of people have been having about Free Ride, which is, you know how in Ticket to Ride or Transamerica, on your ticket cards, you see where your destinations are, you know, on the map. There's a mini map, and you get to see where they are. Free Ride doesn't give you that. They give you a bunch of destinations. There's a lot of destinations that you need to see, like 18 of them at one time, because you have to pick from the pool of destinations where you want to go. But they don't give you any pictures. And this is a European map. And so if you don't know the European map, you're gonna be playing a game of Where's Waldo. And that is not considerate, you may argue, but at least for the solo experience, I thought it was kind of nice to just have that Where's Waldo while I'm learning the game. I liked seeing all the cards and locating all the cities, and then as the game went by, I got more and more familiar with where the cities are. That kind of became integrated with the game itself. And so I really enjoyed that, and if I get to teach this game multiplayer someday, I will probably tell everyone, hey, yeah, some people use markers for this. Actually, I won't even say that, but some people do use markers to mark which cities, not like the writing ones, but like little tokens to mark where the cities are at any given point. But I would just tell everyone, hey, it's going to be hard for you to learn this map, but just bear with it, and I think we'll have a really nice experience. It may even be an intentional choice to not have those locations for you to be able to find it through the giant map, because I certainly got some enjoyment out of that. And the solo mode itself is really fun. It's like a pick up and deliver. By the way, I was learning this on Tabletop Simulator anyway, so that is even more of a scrunched up screen experience. And even then I enjoyed doing the Where's Waldo thing. So can't wait to own a copy of this and actually have the real board to look at. I'm sure it will be absolutely amazing. Yeah, solo mode's really fun. I liked it. Can't wait to try the multiplayer. Next game I played was The Fox in the Forest. I got to teach a friend this game, and it was really fun. And I really appreciate it when a game doesn't feel the need to shove more variety than it needs. Like, you know, think about how, for instance, I have a friend who every week their family plays cribbage. You know, cribbage doesn't have variance. Cribbage is just admittedly, a system that for me is rather complex and kind of awkward, but they still play it year after year, week after week. I mean, that's just like hundreds and thousands of sessions of cribbage. And we, as gamers, we're so spoiled in that we think that, you know, variety is not just a spice of life, but a necessity in the hobby. And when a game doesn't offer enough variety, we start getting we we prematurely start getting worried about its replayability just because of how spoiled we are. But the Fox in the Forest is a game that I feel like it just knows what it needs to be. All the odd numbered cards have different powers, and every time you play it, you shuffle, you have different cards, you have a different trump card, and it just works. You play multiple rounds during a game, it still never gets old. The scoring is ingenious, and I taught it with somebody who didn't know trick taking very well, and she was able to beat me in the very first round. But later on, of course, my expertise was able to earn me the victory. But still, just a very surprising game, a very fun system to teach people and see people slowly understanding how it works. I really, really like it. The next game is For Sale. I was able to play a game of For Sale, and it was online. I was thinking about what that session was like. It was an online game. We played a bunch of fillers, again, like I always do. And I'm like, hey, we have 4 players, let's play a nice little game of For Sale. And it's super fun. Recently, is High Society on this list? No, but this month I was able to play High Society. Interesting. So yeah, recently I played High Society, and just really quick, seems like For Sale and High Society hit that same spot for people in terms of auction games. They're like the same weight, and normal people, you know, you may prefer one and choose to keep one and not the other. For me, I like both For Sale and High Society a lot, but For Sale just inches it out a little bit for me in terms of my personal preference. I love that 2-phase sort of flow of the game, where I can teach the first phase and the second phase just presents itself. First phase, you get these funny little houses. Second phase, you get the $0 checks, and the whole game has a lot of humor, and I just think it's a genius design. I need to look into more of these old school Stefan Dora designs, because this game is just really, really special. High Society is really, really cool as well. So I'm keeping both, because High Society, you can actually ante up in For Sale, because you're going to be giving away half your money no matter what, if not all your money. You can't ante up as much, so there's not as many of those types of just hysterical moments as other auction games. But I still love it a lot. And also, I don't think I'd be getting the automobile version, because I just really like the houses in this game. Like, I'm sure they're going to come up with great stuff for the cars. Great pictures, but I think I like my houses more than cars, just personal opinion. But also, I don't think the game needs any more variable player powers. I'm gonna have to wait to see what it looks like when it comes out. So yeah, just simple, regular For Sale. The next game is another obscure little kids game that I really, really enjoy, and I finally was able to play a game of this, and it was solo, as a matter of fact. It's another game from Brain Games, actually, and this is Farm Rescue. Farm Rescue is one of the most genius takes on a memory game possible, because most games for memory, you have like a pile of stuff in the middle, and you just have to flip one over and see if you can remember it from the other stuff, you know. Like, sure, that's a fun concept, maybe, you know, but it can keep a bunch of kids entertained for a long time. But we've played so many computer games that are like that. Like, it doesn't make sense to have a board game. Okay, that's not true, because there are other computer game concepts that I actually do enjoy in board game form. But that one specifically feels quite juvenile. But for Farm Rescue, that's a really nice take on it, because you have these 25 animal tiles, and they're all face up at the beginning. That's really weird. But then you roll these dice, and then the result you get, you flip the animals face down. Each animal you get flips face down, but that doesn't contribute to your advancement of the game. Instead, if you roll an animal again that you already flipped face down, that's when you flip it back up and see if you can get the right one. That is so clever, and it gives a really nice tension. It gives the game a really nice arc that I expect from like the best Haba games. And this game is arguably better than most Haba games. This farm rescue game is really, really nice. And I am bad at bad at memory games. And so after my one solo game where I totally lost, I kept on looking on the shelf thinking, I might want to challenge myself to farm rescue again. Nah, or I can play it with someone else when I have someone who's better at memory games. But yeah, it's really fun. Definitely a keeper. I love it. The next game I played was Dig. Dig is one of the tiny Paco games by Chris Handy, and I did a big research spree of all these Paco games, and I picked a handful of them that I really enjoyed, and while they were really cheap on Amazon for like $5 a piece, I bought all the ones that I wanted, and I'm very happy that I own all the ones that look mechanically interesting to me. And so Dig is a game where you have a row of bones underneath the ground. You can't see them, and you are dogs trying to get the bones, but you're not sure which one you're gonna get because they're like these 2 cents, but each cent matches, like the 2 cents, only one of them is correct on indicating which bone it is. So a little bit of push your luck. But essentially this is like a competitive version of Deep Sea Adventure. And Deep Sea Adventure is a design that I very much admire, but I don't like the game because of the people I play it with. Because usually somebody's gonna mess the game up for everyone. And, you know, a lot of people love the game because they don't think it's messing the game up. It's actually adding the flavor of the game. But for me, something where I have my own control over how to push my luck, like Dig, definitely more for me. So I really, really enjoy Dig. The next game I played was Cross Clues, and this is my Codenames killer. So Codenames is a mechanically wonderful game, a game that a lot of people love. But for me personally, playing that game feels like work because there are these lapses of silence, like the one that just happened just now. And then being the clue giver, you have like so much pressure on like what to do. And each game you have 2 designated clue givers. So that if you don't like giving clues, I mean, either you don't be a clue giver at the beginning, but let's say you are the clue giver, you're kind of faced with that pressure for the entire game. And that to me feels like work. And the guessers, you know, when you guess wrong, the other team can trash talk. Somehow when everything comes together, Codenames just isn't as fun for me. While a game like Decrypto, where everyone is taking turns being the clue giver, feels more fun because we're kind of in this together, you know. But yeah, Cross Clues is great. It is one of the few games, there's another one coming up, I believe. Yeah, that's one of my most played games, the other one. This is one of the few games that I would seek out to play that is more an activity than a game. So usually with games, I like definitive scoring. I like definitive win-lose conditions. And a game, for instance, even Just One, is a game that everyone loves, but for me, it just misses the mark a little bit. Again, I would never refuse a game of Just One. I just don't think it's a party game I would actively seek out because it's very simple, and yes, technically you're being judged at the end based on how many you win, but that's not really a win condition, as strictly speaking. Cross Clues though is very similar, but the experience of playing the game is so nice, coming up cooperatively, these words, these associations, these clues. It's very fun, and it does bring that sense of community into a cooperative activity that I actually enjoy time and time again. I love Cross Clues. Speaking of Clue, I was able to try Clue Harry Potter edition. And this is a game that I don't own. This is a game that somebody whipped out during game night at my local game shop. So just a bunch of people playing. And then I was like, oh, I don't have a game to join. Some people are playing Harry Potter Clue. Oh, I don't really like deduction games, but I guess I'll join. And so I let my biases aside, and I was humored by the game. I'm not a big fan of reduction games, like I just said, because again, they feel kind of like work. Um, I find that the second I realize someone has more information than me, or even if someone bluffs that they have more information than me, I get really stressed and I just stop enjoying the game. I either get very detached or I just kind of go into this mode of just thinking that I'm really dumb or something. That's so yeah, Clue is definitely not a game for me. Um, but it within its mechanical simplicity. So as a result, I actually enjoyed the spinning gears in the Harry Potter edition and even the potential player elimination. I really enjoyed that you have these hit points and these random cards that just lower your hit points for no reason. Of course, they're thematic, like, oh my gosh, the Death Eaters are here. Ooh, there's a Dementor in the hallway. Lose 20 HP. Like, stuff that would never float on any Euro game or any, like, you know, game of the year sort of thing. But maybe because I wasn't having such a good time with the deduction aspect, I was like, can I be the next person to be eliminated? Maybe because that became such a big part of the game that I started enjoying the elimination, the hit points and stuff. And I thought it was overall a pretty thematic implementation of Clue. So it was fun the one time, and I'm glad I played it. The next game I played was Cloud City. Now, this is the moment I played this game, I realized I had to kill the King Domino. And I think Bruno Cathal's design is great, but it seems like even he is constantly tweaking it. Like with the new King Domino Origins and the Queen Domino. It could be because King Domino is so successful that he wanted to keep making them, but I have reason to suspect that he realized the design was a little too simplistic. Because the action selection mechanism in King Domino is great, but then you realize the scoring is actually kind of hard to do. It's actually kind of hard to win King Domino because there is a lot of luck of the dominoes and all that stuff. But when Phil Walker Harding created a similarly flavored game like Cloud City, it just hits the spot so nicely. I prefer it over King Domino. I like the simple ebb and flow of it. I like the little variants you can add. I like the personal structures you're building for yourself, the little tile selection. It just flows so nicely. And I even bought like sort of his follow-up to Cloud City, which is Neoville. Very excited to try that one as well. I think I'll be keeping both because they sort of have different. They're a little different, you know. Cloud City, you're very much caring about yourself mostly, while in Neoville, you have to claim stuff before everyone else, so you're a little on the edge of your seat the whole time. So yeah, both these blue-orange Phil Walker Harding games, very wonderful stuff. Cloud City is super nice. Looking forward to more plays of it. The next game is actually the last game I played for the entire month, which is I finished the tutorial mode for Cantaloop Book 1, Breaking into Prison. Now, I'm very picky when it comes to campaign games and stuff, but for some reason, these semi-reading type choose-your-own-adventure games like Legacy of Dragonholt and Cantaloop are so my jam. I don't know why. I think just the act of choosing your own adventure and yeah, this type of point-and-click adventure, it hits my nostalgia in the right way. And it hits it in a way where I think a graphic novel type book like Cantaloop can actually replicate it very nicely with the little gadgets, like the red decoder sort of thing. I really like it. And I'm not even the biggest fan of escape room games. I'm really picky with my escape room games. But for me, Cantaloop is just more of a reading game. It doesn't feel like I'm solving puzzles, more like, well, it's a different type of puzzle, right? So in Exit, you have to cut stuff up and you have to like line stuff up. It feels like I'm like doing some Mensa workbook. While in Cantaloop, the puzzles are done in a way that's a little more palatable for me, a little bit more enjoyable for me. So yeah, Cantaloop is great. I have since played a few of the sections of the game and I've been enjoying it so much. I love the humor. I love that it's basically a point-and-click adventure for adults because of the adult humor. I think that's very much a gem I mean, it makes it such a gem, you know. The fact that there is something that's meant for more mature audience that people are actually liking, that isn't just potty humor. I love it. Okay, the next game I played was Calico. I was able to play a game of Calico with somebody, and it was really fun. I just really love the design of Calico. I love the small hand size of 2. I love the marketplace that only has 3 tiles, or the face up display where you can take from. I love there's no option of grabbing from the bag, like just grabbing one at random, because I would choose that every single time. I really like it. However, I'm not I Savannah Park essentially replaced Calico for me. And yeah, because at the end of the day, you know how I was talking about the city building, the adjacency stuff, and another thing that I have sort of a big, not a gripe, but like that isn't really my preference, is sort of this variety set collection thing. So in Calico, you're very much trying to do 3 totally different types of goals, and then you're going to collect all the points at the end and see if your sacrifices for certain goals over other goals are worth it. And that type of variable set collection, I'm going to call it for now. I'm trying to find a good term for it, but that type of variable set collection isn't my jam unless it's implemented in a really clever way. And Calico, it was almost there, but then I found a game like Savannah Park, and then I looked up Cascadia after the Shut Up and Sit Down vid where they did the 3 different games compared back to back. And I think Cascadia ultimately is the game I would prefer. So yeah, still enjoyed it, still would always play it. That's Calico. The next game I played is another one of the Paco games, and that is Boo. Boo is one that isn't rated very highly, but it's sort of like a weird, complicated version of Othello. And the cards in this game, since you'll be maneuvering them a lot, is very fiddly. That's the most unfortunate thing about it, but I don't think it detracts from the gameplay very much. You have these black ghosts and these white ghosts. Somebody plays the black ghost, somebody plays the white ghost. Whoever has more ghosts in the end wins. And you have certain ways to influence how they flip, because every card on the opposite side turns into the other color. So if a card has 3 black ghosts, it will flip into 3 white ghosts if you can trigger that to happen. So it's like finding these combos and activating them, which definitely a more tactical game. And I tend to like my games with a bit more of a long-term strategy, but for some reason that puzzle in Boo is so fun that I don't mind it being just a mostly tactical game. And I'm sure it even has more depth than I'm seeing so far. So I will be keeping Boo and playing more games of it. Alright, so that's Boo. The next game I played is Archaeology: The New Expedition, and this is one of my favorite fillers, period. I absolutely love how this game feels like a really, really casual game like Guillotine, for instance. Something that wouldn't be considered well designed, but every time I play this game, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so well designed. You just draw a card on your turn, resolve it, and then you basically play rummy. You collect a bunch of cards, and you sell them for points. It's set collection, which I don't like set collection. I'm not a big Ticket to Ride fan. Most games that involve like creating hands of cards isn't my thing, but Archaeology is just so good. It is one of the few games in that genre that I genuinely love and admire. And Phil Walker Harding, praise be! That's Archaeology: The New Expedition. Next game I played is Aqualin. So Aqualin is a really fun 2-player abstract game. One that I'm really, really terrible at. Yeah, Aqualin's weird. The game is so simple. You slide a tile, you place a new tile. One person's trying to collect the most colors in a group. One person's trying to collect the most creatures in a group. And yet I am terrible at it. I cannot for the life of me figure out how to play this game. And I love it. I love a good abstract. I love one that I can't figure out. So yeah, that's Aqualin. And I only played one game. I gotta play more games of it this coming month because practice makes perfect, right? The next game I played, and the last game that I played only once, is Abandon All Artichokes. Abandon All Artichokes is super fun. It's a deck wrecking game. You start with all artichokes in your deck. You're trying to get one hand of no artichokes at the end of your turn, and that's it. What I love about this game is it feels well designed, but in a really mainstream way. And that's not a backhanded compliment in any way. It's just that when you play this game, it feels like a mass market game, which actually is really nice because it teaches deck building, but it doesn't have a lot of the seriousness of deck building. It's not afraid for you to like swap cards or do something like, what is another thing that happens? Like after you use this card, you have to give it to someone else and all that stuff. Or like, yeah, all sorts of kooky little mechanisms. But then if you look deeply into the cards, you will realize that some of them are strictly better in the early game. Some of them are good throughout the entire game. And so do I go for the cards that are, that give me that early boost? And then what do I do later on, So the hand management and the deck control of Vanilla Artichokes is really, really interesting. And so even though the game feels like I'm playing some sort of haha take that game, it is actually a superbly designed game that you should give a chance. Okay, now moving on to the game I played twice. We have a handful of them, and then as we get more and more, it's going to get less and less, fewer and fewer games. Yeah, but there is definitely a crown winner for this month as far as the most played game. And we'll get to that. So, in reverse alphabetical order, we're going to do the Zorro dice game. I tried the Zorro dice game as a solo game. And they have this little expansion on Tabletop Simulator, the villain something expansion, and I was able to play 2 games of it back to back. And for how lucky and how simplistic the game is, it's very enjoyable. It's like playing a game of Martian dice on your own, and Martian dice is essentially a better version of zombie dice in my opinion. But the Zorro dice game, if I ever want to play a solo version of Martian dice that has a definitive win-lose condition, I would play it, and I'm thinking about snatching my own copy of it, especially because the game is super cheap. Like I constantly see both the base game and the expansions being sold at like the single digit price point. That's really cool. I did look into their recent Kickstarter, and it seems like the new expansion doesn't add too much for the solo game. Like I even was able to try it on Tabletop Simulator, and I didn't think it was needed. I like the bare bones nature of just the base game and the villain expansion more. So Zorro Dice Game, surprisingly like it because I know the reviews have been mixed to negative on this game, but I really like it as a solo game. The next game I played was Tintas. Tintas is an abstract game that it's just so wonderful. It is a game that is, you literally just have a bunch of colorful wooden chips and you just lay them out on the board. You have this dual layered wooden board, very nice. In fact, it might even be triple layered, but you just put them on in any random order, and every game of Tintas is different and really, really amazing. You're trying to collect sets of the same color, and you can ricochet back and forth. And this is another one of those few set collection games. Again, I don't mind set collection, but I don't really like variable set collection. So this game, the set collection is simply whoever has more of the tokens, basically, by the time somebody wins. And that is super simple, and it feels like it's integrated with the abstract mechanisms very well. And so Tintas is just really lovely. Next game I played was Tinderblox, another game I played back to back. Tinderblox is basically Tweezer Jenga. You're trying to put blocks onto this tiny little campfire. The game is like this big, and you build a fire. And there's a little bit of elimination. Whoever ruins the structure first is out, but then they also free up some of the stuff for the remaining players to just keep going at it, and then one player wins it eventually. And it's so fun. I'm amazed how fun this little Tinderblox game is. I also own the little cat stacking game that I haven't tried yet, but I'm also excited to try that one someday. Tinderblox is super great. The next game I played was the Red Cathedral. This is a bigger game. This is a solidly midweight game. My pet rabbit's drinking water right now, so that's why there's a little voice. Please do not mind that. She's really cute, I promise. So I played two games of Red Cathedral, and this is such a lovely little game. I love the different layers of the game, and I enjoy how the dice movement works. I enjoy the area control on the agenda cards, the blueprint cards. It's so fun, and I really enjoy just building up this cathedral and figuring out this puzzle of the game. Really, really nice. The next game I played was Ravine. Ravine is horrible. It is a terrible, terrible game. I also tried it at my local game shop where a bunch of people were playing, and somebody just brought out Ravine, and I'm like, wow, the art looks pretty nice. I'll join a 5-player game of Ravine. And we played it back-to-back because the first time we just died immediately. And I don't mind the super lucky sort of push your luck survival experience, I guess, in theory. But when a game involves like having a staring contest with your neighbor, or like, you know, suddenly turning into a goofy Quelf-like party game where some of the things are competitive even though the game is cooperative, I just can't do it. The Arena is a really bad game, and I will never play it again. We did end up winning the second game, though, which is nice. At least I can say I won Ravine. I like the art, though, and the components are pretty cool. Next game I played is one of my most played games ever, and that is Qwixx. Qwixx, at this point, is just a spreadsheet game for me. I played so many games of it, I know the ins and outs of it, but after a while of not playing it, I still enjoy it. I enjoy the activity. I enjoy seeing how the game will play out. I enjoy seeing that one player get every single number on their red row while I am suffering point-wise. And while back then I'd be like, oh wow, I'm losing so hard. How am I going to catch up? At this point, I'm like, good for that person. This game is... you can only do so much in this game. I'm just going to enjoy my time. So, really nice. I like Qwixx a lot. The next game I played is Quacks of Quedlinberg. Quacks of Quedlinberg is really fun. I did not play this back-to-back. I played 2 games of this at very different times of the month. Once was at my game store. Once was at one of my local game groups, full of non-gamers, actually. We just gather and play fillers once in a while. So this is more than a filler for that particular crowd. Quacks, the cool thing about Quacks is it feels like a full experience, even though it's just a push your luck activity throughout. And some people say it's over-designed, like why do you need a mechanism just to catch up and not give the winner the satisfaction of winning? But, you know, at the end of the day, winning in this game is not that important. You feel very happy when you do it because you feel like you were able to control your luck. But Quacks is just designed so well. It's meant to maximize the fun within all of its rat tail design, all of its potion tracks and everything, and all of the expansions. It is ultimately just a superbly fun game, and I absolutely love it. The next game I played was Onitama. Can't believe I'd only played 2 games of this, but I've gone full months without playing this. This is one of the best abstract games ever. I used to have this at a 10 out of 10 with the current expansions, not including the Ninja one, because that one's not out yet. But I realized that playing with a lot of the Sensei's Path cards, the game could become stuck, where too many of one type of card shows up, like left diagonal. Like if every card gives you left diagonal and you don't plan for that ahead of time, you're going to suffer a little bit. And so I'm still trying to maneuver that, and this also makes the game a little less completely approachable with the Sensei's Path. So I'm actually gonna, I lowered my grade from a 10 to like a 9, which is still really, really great. But I really love Onitama. I enjoy finding that new depth with the advanced cards. I think that's really fun. And I enjoy playing with one card like the dragon or the tiger that's really powerful. And then thinking, if I have it, like, when will I give this to my opponent? When is the best time? That type of bluff and the move sets in the game is it's just amazing. And I've been losing a lot of Onitama as well, so it's good to be humbled once in a while. Next game I played was Okey Dokey. This is sort of a game, the game type game, where you're cooperatively trying to lay out a tableau of cards with following these kind of tricky rules. I've only been able to play the solo so far, and I think I've seen all there is to see. The solo game, you have a 10-card hand. It's really manageable. You can win pretty easily, but I can just see how with 2 people, let's say, this game will become a much richer experience. So I can't wait to try that out with 2 or more. So yeah, Okey Dokey. It's a fun time. The next game I played was My Farm Shop, and My Farm Shop is another Rudiger Dorn game, and as Rado runs through, famously said, this is the ultimate Machikoro killer, and I completely agree. The way it uses 3 dice, and it gives you that little bit of choice, is so juicy. I was only able to play the base game, and I can see how if you don't add any of the modules, it's a little bit vanilla. After a few games, you feel like you've seen all there is to see. But I'm really excited to play with everything thrown in, because this seems like an actual Euro-y type of Machikoro game. Because, you know, Machikoro, I don't know what the definition of it is, like the classification officially, but My Farm Shop feels the most Euro-y out of all of them, including Space Base and stuff. Yeah, and the next game I played was The Mine. I played 2 games of The Mine, back to back, of course. The Mine is wonderful. It is one of my favorite games. Just the experience of playing it is so nice. Also, earlier I spoke about games that are activities and not win conditions. This game definitely has a win condition, so it's definitely more than just an activity. You get really invested in whether you win or lose, and so The Mine is a legitimate game. One that I have not won, but it's really fun to see how far I could get. The next game I played was Gobblet. You can see that I throw in a lot of these abstract games once in a while. Gobblet is really great. It is tic-tac-toe with a little bit of memory. And this game actually killed a more famous abstract game called Quarto for me. Quarto has the weird mechanism of you give your opponent the next piece they use, but the whole game feels like, you know, you can argue that at a certain level, every abstract game feels like this, which is you're waiting for someone to slip up. But Quarto, even within my few games of it, it feels too much like I'm waiting for someone to slip up. I'm waiting for somebody or myself to not see a certain configuration that would lead my opponent to victory. Gobblet gives a similar feeling to Quarto because of the various aspects of the pieces, the sizes and stuff, but yet it feels like you have actual choice and you can actually make advances in this game instead of just constantly waiting for someone to slip up, you know, like playing abstract chicken, if you will. But yeah, I love the rule where, because things are going to be Russian dolling inside of each other, when you touch a piece, you have to move it, even if you reveal something that would connect 4. I love that. That simple thing is so fun, and Gobblet is so fun. The next game I played was Finger Guns at High Noon. This has all the feelings of a social deduction game, the excitement of it, but within a simultaneous action sort of rubric, right? Because it's essentially a glorified version of rock, paper, scissors, but you get to do like a wide variety of things, and you know, the more people you play with, the merrier. And you can have little posses, and you can do dynamite to get kills your neighbors. And even when you're a ghost, the game is well balanced to make the ghost still be in the game, and it doesn't even feel superfluous. So it's just really great. I'm surprised I only played this twice. I need to get this, you know, more to the table. Finger Guns at High Noon. next game I played is slowly becoming my all-time favorite game. This is Everdell. And the reason I say it's slowly getting there is because I have not played with any of the expansions except for the extra, and I'm waiting for that big box. I don't do Kickstarter, but once it shows up on retail, I will most likely grab it because this game it feels so rock solid, you know? Like, it's not a game with a lot of quirk. It's a game that's just with ridiculous, I mean, okay, the tree is quirky, sure, but mechanically, it does a lot of things that you've seen, but with these little twists that really pop. For example, because the round phase, somebody can be in a prior round while someone else moves to the next round, so there can be the simultaneous sort of thing. Their workers get taken out ahead of time, so those worker placement spots are suddenly free for you, even though there isn't that usual like cleanup in between rounds. So that type of back and forth flow, like small things like that, make Everdell so pleasing. And I love the tableau building that actually feels a little tense sometimes. I don't like, I find that sandboxy engine builders aren't as fun for me as games like Everdell, where you see a bunch of choices, but you know that if you don't choose well, things will not go right your way. And it's not like a game like Terraforming Mars doesn't give you that feeling by the end, but again, sandboxy, right? Everdell never feels sandboxy. Everdell feels like you need to pick certain paths in order to succeed. And I like them. I like the restrictions it gives me. Yeah, and I can see this easily becoming my favorite game. And you don't know what my favorite game is because this is my first video here, but I'll get to it. It's gonna show up a few games later. The next game I played is Draftosaurus. Draftosaurus is another one of my favorite fillers, and this is a game that has the variable set collection. But sometimes a game with variable set collection still works for me, and this is one where the central act of drafting is so nice. You get to reveal a little dino, you get to put it on, and that die that controls where everyone else needs to put them except you is so fun. And Draftosaurus is another game, just like Archaeology, the New Expedition, where I don't know why it works so well, but it really does. The next game I played was Cahoots. I played Cahoots twice, and I've played them solo. I find that, so the German version of this game has essentially an option to play solo, which is literally you set up according to the 4-player rules and give yourself a hand of 4. And in that sense, Cahoots becomes somewhat of like a push your luck goal fulfillment game where, you know, you have your hand size is way too small, but you're playing essentially, Cahoots is co-op Uno in a nutshell. You're fulfilling tasks and cooperatively playing Uno. Same number, same color, yada yada. But when you're playing it solo, your hand size is so small, it's almost like, I don't know what I'm going to draw, but I think this will maximize my chances. So this push your luck aspect of it is actually quite enjoyable as a solo experience. And unlike a game like Okey Dokey, I actually think it offers something slightly different in a solo game. And so I will continue playing this solo, as well as with other people, of course. Cahoots. Box is too big, though. The next game I played was Blockbuster. This is not the Blockbusters trivia game. This is 2 words, Blockbuster. It's a pretty obscure Korean abstract game that essentially killed Blockus for me. This is a game where you want to have majority around certain shapes, and then the more shapes, the better. That's basically it. And you can play up to 4, and it's punishing, it's unforgiving. There's more take that, but like more screw you moments than in Blockus, even early on. And it's a game that you can get better playing over time, while in Blockus, you never know whether you're doing something right, especially at the beginning. So yeah, Blockbuster, the Blockus killer. The next game I played was Azul, the vanilla Azul, OG Azul. Very fun. I still think the maximum potential of original Azul is with the crystal mosaic boards. I think those boards are phenomenal. Not the plastic coating, the actual game modes. Because you have an opportunity, you have a chance to mess up one of your rows because of a certain lack of foresight, shall we say. But yeah, Azul is super fun. That central mechanism of like pushing everything to the middle and drafting these tiles feels something that should have been made in the BCs, in the prehistoric times, if you will, because it just feels so ancient and so fun. And you combine it with a modern tile laying Quirkle scoring system, and it just sings so well. Azul, super great. So now we reached A again, which means those are all the games I've played twice. And now we go through a short list of games I've played 3 times. First one is Wavelength. I was able to play a couple of games of Wavelength. It's basically one of the games I will definitely bring whenever there's like a 6-player account. Really fun, although I did play it with a bunch of non-gamer adults. Like, they don't even play many party games. And they found it actually tricky to come up with hints. And that was the first time I've seen Wavelength miss for a group. So that was really interesting. I don't think I'll be bringing this game back for them. But yeah, Wavelength is really fun and one of the best party games ever made. And Wolfgang Warsch's crazy, those little touches in balancing the points is really fun. Like, one of the teams starts with a point because they're going second. That definitely is the guy who designed Quacks of Quedlinberg. You can just see his touches in this game, and I love it. The next game I played is one of my favorite fillers, especially for 4 people. This is No Swap, No Pay, another obscure Korean game that features essentially this, you draft coins into your bag and then you swap them with other people, but you don't have to. It's like this really fun bluff. You can swap bags and it's really chaotic, but it's over in 4 short rounds, and then you get to see how whose bag scores the highest. Very simple, very streamlined. There's a coin that potentially can make your entire bag score nothing, which is very, very fun. I've been hooked on this game forever. I love No Swap, No Pay, and if you ever find a copy of it somehow, please get it. It is really, really fun. The next game I played was Kobayakawa. Now, Kobayakawa is interesting because there are sort of 2 rule sets for it. It's essentially Love Letter meets poker, and the first version of the game is fine, but you can't you can't bid as well as in the second edition of the game. But because Oink seems to not be printing it right now, it is hard to find the official second rulebook. So I had to piece together some BGG post regarding what the second edition rules were, and through lots of trial and error, I finally think I have a grasp on how to play the second version of Kobayakawa with just the first edition game box with some lovely poker chips that I bought from Goodwill. So yeah, that's Kobayakawa. Really, really fun. Ridiculously elegant, streamlined design that actually feels like you're doing something of meaning. You know, they're the simple decisions you can make in this game, they make you feel special. The next game I played was Crossing, another one of my favorite fillers. I need to stop, but like, this is less of a game that this game will probably never be on my like top 50 of all time, but it is one of my go-to games, especially for non-gamers. You know, like, yeah, I teach them something more strategic. Boom, now we're gonna play Crossing because it's so fun. You just point, and you know, with games like Finger Guns at High Noon and Crossing, it is literally the simplest form of simultaneous action selection. And you know, that's a bunch of words that I love saying together. But yeah, you're not even selecting cards, you're just using your hands. And because I love this mechanism, of course I would love it even when the mechanism is at its most streamlined, which is using your hand to point at stuff. That's just the beauty of simultaneous action selection, and Crossing is a game that I will continue playing forever. The next game I played is Dango. This is an incredible game. This might be the greatest matching game ever. This might even get a 10 out of 10. I don't know if I will ever get tired of it, but just the act of teaching this game to unsuspecting players is so ridiculously fun as they try to get used to what all the symbols mean and you're like, do I slap this? What do I do? And you have a whole table of people just like in agony over this simple matching game, but like with a very unintuitive system. It's so fun, and there also is the possibility of having more than one answer. And I like that there's even a slight penalty for slapping the wrong thing, so you're like kind of doing that. And the tea drinking thing, where there's nothing that matches the center, nobody is ever ready for the tea drinking, and I love it. Dango is the most phenomenally designed speed matching game that I've ever played. So that's all the games I played 3 times. Let's move on to the games I played 4 times, and there are only 3 of them. First one is Rhino Hero Super Battle. This involved 2 sessions of back-to-back games of Rhino Hero, and this was actually the first time I played my copy of it. I bought it a couple of months back, and I finally was able to play it. And it's really, really fun. The first time we had 6 people, and I thought it would be fun to like have teams of 2, and that worked okay. But I think I like it more when it's just a 3 to 4 player game, you know, because there's only so much you can do in teams. But you know, that doesn't mean I won't ever do it again. But I like it when I'm accountable for my mistakes in Rhino Hero instead of like a teammate's. But yeah, Rhino Hero is super fun. House of Cards, the game. Some really ridiculous mechanisms of like getting your hero up to the highest. This really fiddly dice. I should say 3 fiddly dice that you have to roll. I actually didn't know that of the 2 pip dice, one of them goes to the attacker and one of them goes to the defender. I thought those were interchangeable. I didn't know they were different sides to them. So that's fun. I'm trying to keep it vague because I don't want to like dump the whole spiel. Get it? No pun intended. Okay. Next game I played was Gold Fever. Now, Gold Fever is a game that Tom Vasel hates infamously, and Stephen Bonacore infamously said in front of the Board Game Geek website, like, Tom Vasel hates fun because of giving a low rating to this Stronghold game. But I really enjoy Gold Fever. It's another push your luck game, but there's just enough negative interaction that is fun. It's just so fun. It fits the bag building nature of its game so well. Yeah, how do you screw someone over? You literally just add useless gravel to their bag. It's so simple, but yet clearly a lot of effort was put into making the best design possible out of Gold Fever. So I love it. The next game I played is Dominion. I played 4 plays of this. Now this does not include the games I play online of this. And I guess if you've made it this far through this roundup, I should tell you that Dominion is currently, and probably will be for a while, my favorite game of all time. And I know that's like some ridiculously outdated choice for favorite game of all time, but hear me out. I play Dominion online. Obviously I play just totally random like you're supposed to, and I try to climb up the rankings and everything. I'm not super good, but in real life I prefer to make my own kingdoms, and I'm very, very selective with my kingdoms. And yeah, since you listened this far, I'd like to tell you a little bit about some plans for this channel. Other than doing little reviews of simple games, maybe eventually branching into more complex games, just doing general board game stuff, I want to have a dedicated platform for Dominion. I want to have dedicated days of the week where I talk about just Dominion. And because I love this game so much, I'm going to share you a lot of the kingdoms that I design, because I really enjoy a Euro-y approach to Dominion, where instead of picking the one path that will win, like heavy trashing, whatever, there are several paths to victory. And to show you kingdoms where all 10 cards are at least worth considering, if not somewhat useful. That's the games of Dominion that I like. I don't think I will ever be a game designer, but any type of designer rush that I have, I get from making Dominion setups. I am so enamored with this game and the platform it offers me to make these crazy kingdoms. So yeah, stay tuned for Dominion content. In fact, I think after this video, the first leg of content is going to be all Dominion related. And I know this is not going to help those who came here for just all the games I play, but you know, we got to start somewhere. Okay, so those are the games I played 4 times. I have 2 games that I played 5 times. Let's go through them really quick. The first one is Super Mega Lucky Box. This game is amazing, except it's gonna be sold in mass market. I'm not sure, because it's not available in my friendly local game store just yet. And I am really sad, because I think this game not only makes me... This game, for me, is the superior design to Silver and Gold, as far as Phil Walker Harding roll and writes are concerned. Silver and Gold is nice. It's very feathery. It feels feathery. It feels very fluffy. But Super Mega Lucky Box, while on the surface looks just like Bingo, but with choices, coming up with a solid strategy of like the lightning tokens and the bonuses and the stars and all the endgame scoring is actually really tricky. Like, which cards do I go for? I find that the drafting of new cards in this game to be actually a really fascinating decision space. And I'm not even sure if this game is super balanced because of the moons. But I like it so much because it just replicates Bingo, but I can teach it to anyone. Yeah, so that's Super Mega Lucky Box. Played it 5 times, and actually 4 of the times were solo. I love this solo mode more than a certain other roll and write that I'll get to very soon. But yeah, I love the solo mode. I just enjoy the central puzzle of like taking the new cards and choosing which ones to pick, and then which ones to cross out, and how to finish up my boards within a certain round, within each round and the whole game. So yeah, very fun solo mode, underrated solo mode. The next game I want to talk about is Rebis. This is from the Matchbox collection, which has some atrocious rulebooks, even in the new edited version. But this was based... I like the solo mode in this. I think it has a really nice flow to it. I used to be good at it, and then... So all 5 of these solo mode games were played in the same sitting, because I was at my game store, and we just basically had a dry spell for a bit. Nobody was coming. But, yeah, essentially I got really bad at this game. I could not win a single one of them, and I remember in the past being able to beat the opponent, the fake solo opponent player, pretty easily. But yeah, I like Rebis. I like the solo experience. I think it's a fun little push your luck thing, and I'm all about the push your luck. So, Rebis. Gonna play more of it this month, hopefully. The next game I played is one of my TTS group's favorite games, new favorite games. I introduced it to them this month, or November, and they have not been stopping. This is So Clover. So Clover is great. It's another game, it's probably the only other game other than Cross Clues where it's definitely an activity. Like, this one is definitely an activity, because there's not even any scoring in this game. But yet, I will gladly play. I will seek out to play, because the type of dialogue that ensues when people are trying to figure out your Clover board is so fun. And for some reason, if you're the person whose puzzle is being solved, it's extremely hard to keep a poker face in this game compared to most other games. And I think that's just the magic of this game. There's something really exciting about writing those words and having other people just solve them for you. It's like we each become our own puzzle maker. And So Clover just gives you that experience in such a gratifying way. And there's never any harmful feelings. If you got so close, somebody might be like, hey, you got so close, just have another shot. And that's not even in the rules, but So Clover just brings out the best in us. So yeah. Oh, also, that's a game we played 6 times. Rebis and Mega Lucky Box were 5 times, So Clover is 6 times. And another game I played 6 times was No Thanks. No Thanks remains a favorite. Any chance I get with that 4 or 5 player count, any chance for a filler, I bring out No Thanks. I just really like the way it's designed. There's a lot of I don't know if it's depth, but there's just a lot of small fun moments in this game. Small fun decisions. And the game is somewhat scripted because, you know, like if it's on my turn and there are 3 chips on a card, by the time it's the next time it's my turn, it'll probably be like 9 chips or whatever. Like after I put a chip, obviously, and then it goes around the table. Well, no, it'd be 8 chips. Yeah, there are 8 chips, but before that, someone's gonna take it. And if I can see through the scripting of the game, like you can see that no thanks, your choices are probably more limited than say most other games, but the fun of what ends up winning, what kind of a tableau and chip combo ends up winning you the game is always a lot of fun. And like going circle after circle and collecting more and more chips, all that fun stuff. No thanks is just a genius design that I will always play. Now, for the game of the month. Again, game of the month is probably Dominion if we count all the online plays, but the online experience is so different that I wouldn't equate them. So, this is the game of the month. It is a flip and write, roll and write. It is a really excellent flip and write that you can get for really cheap. This game is called Metro X, and I've played Metro X 11 times. The first few times were solo, and like I alluded to in my Super Mega Lucky Box part, I don't think Metro X is as good of a solo game as all the solo aficionados seemingly are saying. Like I know Liz Davidson likes to play it solo. I know Tom Vassell even plays this game solo. But for me, something that's a key thing about this game is choosing to complete a route first versus other players and getting those extra points. That just gives the game a little bit more angst. While in the solo game, yes, it's angsty, especially if you play the backside, but like you're kind of just going at your own pace and you know you're going to get the higher score anyway. So for me, Metro X is best actually with more players. With 2 players, it's nice, but you're still not on high alert to finish up those routes. When you play with 5 or 6 players, the routes just get finished left to right and left to right. And that brings so much tension to the game that I absolutely love. And again, it might not be as balanced as, say, a 2-player game, because you could just end up finishing none of the routes and just have a really, really high deficit. But I think the best way to play this game is actually with 4, 5, 6 players. So that's my hot take on Metro X, which is my game of the month. And yeah, again, compared to Metro X Super Mega Lucky Box, that solo mode, because it's bingo, there isn't too much interaction. And there's a nice like variant for how the moon is scored in the solo mode. I think Super Mega Lucky Box is just the better solo game for me. So yeah, that is this month. I feel like I played Cartographers though. That's so weird that I didn't see Cartographers. Huh. I guess Cartographers, yeah, I didn't start until December. Interesting. Yeah, I recently got to Cartographers and it's really strange that I don't see that yet. But yeah, so I guess that's going to be for next month. And I am absolutely pooped. I'm surprised I was able to talk this long. And yeah, I'd better get a drink of water and take a breath or something. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned for some Dominion content if you like all this stuff. Pretty soon I will have a healthy balance of like just gaming stuff, and there's going to be lots of lists galore, because that's what I like to see. I want this channel to be only the stuff that I want to see, which is lists, and then stuff about Dominion, very informative, a little less on the playthroughs and the Kickstarter demo sort of thing. You're about to see it all soon, so I hope you enjoy. My name is Kevin, and see you next time.